anything. My name is Briar Milas.
And my name's Carla Justice.
And today we're meeting with Robert MacPhee. He is a renowned author, he is a speaker, and he's a founding member of the Transformational Leadership Council. So, hi, how are you? How are you, Robert?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. It's good to meet you guys, and I'm thrilled about the conversation we're going to have today.
Yeah, very nice to meet you. So can you tell us a little bit about your book, Manifesting for Non-Gurus?
Sure. The book actually emerged out of the work that I was doing with Jack Canfield. I was director of training for Jack's organization for 4 years or so. And most people know Jack as the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. But I had the opportunity to work with him with his real core work, which is more based around his book, The Success Principles. And he teaches in both education and corporate and public workshop environments how to be successful. And part of my responsibility with him was to run a year-long mastermind group where people had spent a lot of time and a lot of money to achieve some pretty remarkable results in their life. And it became my responsibility to help them do that. And I saw that people were getting stuck in the same areas over and over again. And it was really those 5 areas that emerged into this book, Manifesting for Non-Gurus, really based on the principle that we can all manifest amazing things in our life. In fact, we're all manifesting all the time. It's just a matter of whether we're manifesting what it is we really want or not. And when people realize that they're not manifesting what they want, the book is intended to help them understand why and have a strategy they can use to start shifting that.
Wow. I think that's really neat that you had the opportunity to work with the Canfield group for so many years. That must have been really neat.
Yeah, Jack's an amazing guy. He's been a remarkable mentor and teacher to me. He really is one of those people who, if you've seen him speak or on video or read his books or whatever it might be, he really lives his life the way he teaches. Sometimes in this industry, we find out that people aren't necessarily living their own life the way they encourage other people to live theirs. Jack is really a great example of someone who does do that. And again, Chicken Soup for the Soul is a perfect example. If you were to look at the principles in the Success Principles and then look at what he and Mark Johansson created with Chicken Soup for the Soul, you'd find out that it's a beautiful example of both of them really practicing on a day-to-day basis the principles that are in that book.
So they have a lot of the principles from what you're saying that they definitely integrate into their lives, but I'm just curious, how do you see him integrating the accountability into his company?
Well, accountability is one of those principles that is in Success Principles. It's an important principle that I weave into my own work that I do with, whether it's coaching, working with people one-on-one, whether I'm working with people in mastermind groups that I now do on my own. I used to do Jack, but also with Alex Mendosian, John Assaraf, people like that. And accountability partnerships also. These are principles that are taught in terms of how to accelerate the results that we're getting. And there's a simple reality that most of us do more when we make a commitment to someone else that we're going to do it than we will when we simply make a commitment to ourselves. So at its core, that's really the power of having a good accountability structure, is to have someone in your life that you're making a commitment to. You and I were accountability partners, and I said to you, I will make 5 sales calls by tomorrow. And I know that I'm going to be on the phone with you tomorrow. You're going to be checking up on me to see if I actually did what I said I'm going to do. I'm going to be less likely to let all the distractions in my life get in the way of me making those 5 calls that I might be a little bit reluctant to make. So that's really at the core of the core of the accountability conversation.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. That's very cool. So the biggest thing I think people have a hard time finding is an accountability partner. You know, I mean, sometimes family members aren't the best people to, pair up with, things like that. So how would you recommend finding an accountability partner?
It's a really good point, and we actually, in my own work, and again in the work that I did with Jack, we used to assign people accountability partners as part of these programs that we were doing. We might have 20 people in the program, and we'd assign 10 partnerships, thinking it was no big deal, and people would work it out. But there's so many logistical issues, and there's also personality issues that show up. in terms of finding the right partner. I, to this day, have not really found a magical formula in terms of what to do to find the perfect accountability partnership. But there are things to keep in mind, one of which you've mentioned, which is, in general, is not a great idea to have your spouse or your business partner be your accountability partner. Generally, you all have as much accountability with that person as you're going to have, and trying to thrust true accountability partner relationship onto the relationship that's already in place, in my experience, generally doesn't work. The other thing that is really difficult is there has to be some way of connecting with the accountability partner, whether it's phone or Skype or email or text or whatever it is. And in general, you want to be the same time zone as the person who's your accountability partner. I've seen it work if they're not, but again, if I'm on the West Coast, I'm in San Diego, my accountability partner's on the East Coast. By the time I get up in the morning, I'm pretty rise around usually up by 6 a.m. Someone on the East Coast, it's already 10 a.m. for them. They're pretty well into their day. And so we're just on a different schedule. And we find that it's really much more effective if you are in a accountability partnership with someone who's in the same time zone as you. And the third thing I would say is it's really important to really look at the personality that you have and that you want from an accountability partner. So sometimes that can be the thing that derails it more than anything else. Is it needs to be someone who you have a lot of respect for, and that you're really respect their feedback, their opinion. There may be a time when they need to push you a little bit, and that respect, that admiration, the willingness to take the feedback, is a really important element as well. So recognizing personalities involved is an important thing.
Yeah, I could definitely see having a little bit of a push every once in a while. That would be helpful, right? And that might be a reason why family might not be a good idea, I would imagine. They might take your excuses where accountability partner may not, right?
Absolutely. And again, with family, I mean, I have an amazing relationship with my wife, but I think it'd be an accident waiting to happen, a bomb waiting to go off, whatever you want to call it, if I decided we were going to be accountability partners. I told you one of the things I do is coaching. There's one area of my life where I do not coach. I think anybody who's married can relate to this. My wife is supportive of my work. She appreciates my feedback when she asks for it. And at the same time, she doesn't welcome my coaching when it comes unsolicited. So, it's a fine line. And there really is, I think there's a lot of benefits to keeping our professional life and our personal life separate. There is certainly some overlap. Like I said, in my relationships with my wife, my children, certainly my coaching kind of work that I do comes into play. I told Jack for years the single biggest impact his work had on my life is as a parent. And doing the work that I do and being around the work that I'm around had a profound impact on the way I showed up as a parent. And yet at the same time, we don't flip chart and easel out every night at the dinner table in our house. It's more a matter of modeling the work and living the work as opposed to being a teacher, being a coach in a relationship like a husband-wife or father-son or father-daughter. Generally, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So once you have an accountability partner and you've actually, found someone that you work with and that you click with emotionally and everything else, how does the partnership work? Is it daily? Do you talk to each other daily? Is it weekly or monthly?
Well, it's really up to partners. And here's the structure that I recommend as at least a starting point. And some people modify this. I generally recommend 5 days a week. And most of these accountability partnerships are set up on a business kind of a structure, at least to begin with. So I recommend 5 days a week and allow people to have their personal time on the weekend. If people are working on maybe a relationship issue or a health issue, it's more of a 7 days a week kind of a thing. They might want to check in every day, 7 days a week. But it is important to check in on a regular basis. I recommend phone calls because a phone call is just a little bit higher level of accountability than an email or a text. I have an accountability partnership right now where we just do a phone call once a week because our schedules are both so crazy. and we text each other the other 4 days a week, and that works really well. But when people are first getting started, I really strongly suggest a specific time every day where you check in by phone. That seems to be the most powerful way to do it. The other thing that I strongly suggest is keep the calls very short and very structured. This is not a coaching call, it's not a counseling call, it's not a social call, it's an accountability call. And the elements of an accountability call are very simple. It's called, did you do what you said you would do yesterday? And what are you committed to do today? So if you and I, again, if we were accountability partners, you might start and say, yesterday, I committed to make those 5 sales calls, and I actually did 7. Today, I'm committed to do another 5, and that's it. And then it's my turn. So, yesterday I committed to do a training run for this marathon I'm going to be running, and I did that run. Today, I'm committed to, do a health cleanse. I was working on health goals, whatever it is that I'm committed to today. So it's what I did yesterday, what I'm committed to do today, and then it's thank you very much, nice to talk to you, and get back to work. One of the things that we see get in the way and sabotage accountability partnerships is when the phone calls become half an hour, 45-minute social calls or coaching calls. And the reality is most of us don't have time for that. At some point, we'll look at it and say, I'm not getting the benefit from this relationship that I need relative to the amount of time and energy that I'm having to put into it. So keeping it quick and having the structure in place seems to work really well for people.
Nice. I think the keep it quick thing is really going to help our viewers. Thank you for that. I'm just wondering, have you seen where accountability partnerships have ever worked inside of corporations?
Most of the work that I do is with entrepreneurs. I am actually starting to do more work with larger organizations, and I am putting in place some accountability partnerships within the organization. I think some of the things that we've already talked about would apply within the corporate relationship, just as we've talked about it more on kind of a personal level here. I think if someone already has a relationship in place with a coworker, and by relationship I mean someone might be their immediate supervisor, that probably wouldn't be a good person to have an accountability partnership with. Even if someone was in kind of a partnership relationship, maybe you're working really closely on the same project, in some cases that wouldn't be the best person to have an accountability partnership with, oftentimes because it would fit into what we were just talking about, where it might become a much longer conversation than just a simple accountability partnership. But what I do see within corporations is that if you're able to find somebody who's 1 or 2 steps removed from the work that you're doing, you can get great benefit from having that person as an accountability partnership, because first of all, you get the accountability, but also you start building a little web of connections within the organization that just weren't in place before. So if I'm, for instance, on the sales team, I do a lot of work these days with high-tech and biotech companies. I might be having an accountability partnership relationship with someone who works in the lab. Now, all of a sudden, as a salesperson, I get a closer connection to what's going on in the lab. So it's almost like double dipping. I get the benefit of the accountability, but also the benefit of more awareness of what's going on in another area of business.
That's really, really interesting. Yeah. I have a quick question for you. So when it comes to really difficult things to get over, such as addictions and things that are extremely difficult to get over, how does an accountability partnership, or would it help, or can it help with those sort of
I think
things?
it absolutely can help. And I think to some degree, I'm not an expert on 12-step programs, but I think to some degree, if you look at what a 12-step program is, it really is an accountability arrangement. It's a way for people to accomplish something, overcoming an addiction, with the help and support of others that would be very difficult to do on their own. So with a group like that, it's almost like a mastermind versus an accountability partnership. But I think that at its core, your question is going back to that idea that it's much more likely to do what we commit to do if we make that commitment to someone else, especially if it's someone who we really trust and we really respect, that we really feel a close connection to. If we make a commitment to that person, we're more likely to do it than we would be if we just made a commitment to ourselves. And in the case of an addiction, in the case of trying to overcome something, whether it's drugs or alcohol or sex or computer games or whatever it is, it's in my opinion, it's more difficult because we're trying to not do something. And anybody who's familiar with how the mind works knows that when we focus on trying not to do something, we create a vivid picture in our mind of exactly what we don't want to do, and it starts to grow in our awareness. And it can be a downward spiral. So it is very difficult to overcome those kinds of addictions, to stop doing things we know aren't good for us and replace those behaviors. And for me, I feel like I'm supported when I've made commitments to other people that I'm going to, whatever it is, that I'm going to eat better, that I'm going to stop smoking, stop drinking, or go for a run every day. I make a public declaration or a declaration to my accountability partner. I'm much more likely to do that. And the beauty of an accountability partnership is I don't just do that once. And this is one of the most powerful elements of accountability partnerships that sometimes gets overlooked, is the element of daily accountability. When you make that commitment every single day, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do this today. Even if I miss a day, I get right back on track the next day because I have that support, I have that accountability. It happens so often with people, they miss a day and then fall completely off the wagon. They back to drinking, or they stop making their calls, or they, whatever it is, they slip and aren't allowed to get back on track. But daily accountability can get them right back on track really quickly.
Really what I'm hearing is that it's the daily accountability, it starts with the individual, just accountability in general. It starts with the individual. At a corporation, I'm sure that starts at the top. One thing, how should an accountability partner handle excuses from the other partner?
Well, I would say a couple things about that, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think bringing it up right away. I think a really good accountability partner will not wait. We'll bring it up right away. And again, if when I are accountability partners and I feel like I'm hearing excuses from you and I feel uncomfortable about saying anything about it, I'm really not supporting you. The best way I can support you is to bring that up and say, well, that sounds like an excuse. Is that really what's going on? We were just talking previously about the connection between accountability and responsibility. You said it really comes back to the individual, and I think you're absolutely right. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're taking responsibility for creating a certain result in our life, whether it's losing weight or increasing our income or improving our relationships, whatever it is, we're declaring a new result that we want to create in our life. We're owning that and taking responsibility. The next level is to say, I can do this more quickly, more effectively, more easily if I get help. And if I had an accountability partner, if I had someone to kind of hold my hand and give me a little nudge when I need a little nudge, then I'm going to be more likely to accomplish this. And the little nudge comes when I start making excuses or when I start kind of falling into patterns. This is another thing that happens. I get on the phone with you and I say, well, yesterday I didn't make my sales calls because it was my wife's birthday. Which actually today's my wife's birthday. So it's a very stressful week for me. Today is my wife's birthday and tomorrow's my mother's birthday. I'm handling it pretty well. But I might say that was the reason why I didn't make my sales calls. And then we get on the phone tomorrow and I say, well, I didn't make my sales calls because it was raining today. And I had to go out and fix the roof on the house. And then the next day it was called, I didn't make my sales calls because I had too many coaching calls on my schedule. And at some point, you as my accountability partner are going to raise your hand and say, Robert, you asked me to hold you accountable to making these sales calls. It seems like you're not picking up, like what's really going on. And that's one of the most valuable things that an accountability partner can do. And so some people, that's very uncomfortable. But if an accountability partner isn't willing to do that, they're probably not providing the greatest value to the partner.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. As far as talking about our subconscious mind and how it's kind of like this inner child that is rebelling against anything that we're trying to do, say we have a smoking habit or something like that that's really hard to get over, what things how would you handle, I guess, how would you recommend bridling that in? Like if on moments of, say you're a smoker and you're having an extreme urge to smoke, like how does, is an accountability partner enough for that?
Well, I think an accountability partner can help with that. And I'm I'm kind of cracking up because the last couple of weeks, this issue of consciousness and how often our subconscious mind is really running the show for us. And I'm really connected very deeply to how my own work is about consciousness and not so much on kind of a woo-woo, kind of out there kind of consciousness, spirituality kind of way, but literally in the way that you're talking about making conscious choices, taking our life from a place where the subconscious, where the programming, the external environments are really dictating our behavior, and have our own conscious choices make those behaviors. And it really is a critical element in creating the life that we really want to live. I think where it connects back to having an accountability partner is, again, that idea of there's so much of that we can do on our own, but there's even more that we can do when we have help. When we have a really effective accountability partner arrangement, when we have a mastermind group, when we have a coach, when we really feel like we're surrounded with people who are going to encourage, support, cheer us on, but also, you guys asked some great questions about the little nudges that we need. When things get tough, when the excuses start showing up, when things aren't going the way we want them to go, when we're not following through on our commitments. I don't know about you, but I love to be surrounded by people who I know they're doing it in a loving way, but they're going to call me on it. They're going to say, hey, Robert, you said you would do this, or you said this was your goal, and what I see is your behavior is not matching the result that you want to create in your life. So it does, I think, really connect back to that idea of it's so important to have an accountability partner to support us in that way.
Robert, you've shared some awesome information with us today. I feel like I've learned so much more about accountability partnerships and how accountability can play such a huge role in our lives. As we wrap up today, I was wondering if you could share 3 simple tips that our viewers could use in finding an accountability partner.
3. Why is it always 3? Well, I think we've touched on a lot of different things here, and hopefully there's been some good ideas for people about how to reach out and select an accountability partner that will really work well. I think one of the things that we talked about earlier would be on my top 3 list, which is to not have that person be a family member or a business partner, to not take an existing relationship and try and change it into an accountability partner relationship. That would be one thing. Another thing that really comes to mind, and this is difficult for some people, but it's so beneficial if we're willing to do it, is be willing to stretch. Think about someone in your life who could be something of a mentor to you, someone who your first reaction might be, well, why would they want to be my accountability partner? Kind of what's in it for them? And keep in mind that what's in it for them is that you're going to be their accountability partner. You're the one proposing the relationship. But rather than compromising or settling, I encourage people when they're selecting an accountability partner to really stretch and surround yourself with maybe a person who's playing a little bit bigger game than what you're playing. And then the third thing I would say is if you're going to go into an accountability partner arrangement, it's very important to really go into it fully committed. If you're going to go into it kind of lukewarm, we'll check and see how this works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. There's really no point. If you're serious about what it is you want to accomplish, if you're serious about a goal and intention in your life, some new result you want to create, an accountability partnership can absolutely help you do that. You can do it more quickly and more easily with a good accountability partner, but really only if you're both committed to the process. And so the level of commitment that you have, the willingness to stretch, and not having to be someone who is already a business partner, a spouse, or something like that would be 3 things that I think are really helpful.
Thank you so much. Everything has been so great. It's been really interesting talking to you, Robert. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully this has been helpful.
All right. Well, I am Briar Mielis from The Accountability Thing.
And my name's Carla Justice. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, you can always learn more about us at theaccountabilitything.com and on Facebook.